Happy birthday, Occupy. My name's Merin. I'm a civil rights lawyer, and I had the distinct pleasure to visit Zuccotti Park shortly after that Occupy started, Occupy Wall Street, and then Philadelphia, to see the people coming out so enthusiastically sharing their experiences and their critiques of the system that was depriving them of reasonable education, health, and employment opportunities. My wife and I were fortunate enough to get down to Washington, D.C. and see the Occupy there. And again, the spirit of the people coming together, celebrating, learning from each other, and building, with unions coming out, with social service organizations flocking to these groups of people who were spirited and recognizing their common interests and the need for change. It was exciting coming back to Sacramento to see that we were not left out of the mainstream, that we were joining the hundreds of other cities and campuses and even countries outside of the United States who were celebrating the Occupy Wall Street movement. And did it continue to flourish in public? What did happen to Occupy at the parks in Sacramento, in New York, in Philadelphia, in Washington, in Cincinnati, in St. Louis? The politicians pull the string that they use when they are threatened by people who actually take advantage of the guaranteed right to free speech and free assembly in our state and federal constitutions. And they brought law enforcement out to say this is a threat to our society. Because what? Because you are actually out in public either too long or in the wrong place, or serving food, or sleeping. Why ask you, what in our Constitution qualifies the right to freely assemble, the right to speak, to some restrictions that are added at the whim of politicians to restrict those rights? There are no restrictions in the Constitution. They are ones made by the people whom we have put into office. And if just as we put them into office, we can take them out of office. And I hope that this movement and all those who hear the voice of Occupy, who understand the common interest that we speak for, will take advantage of that power and vote the scoundrels out. That's a sort of a good principle. Vote the scoundrels out. Now, just one other area I want to cover is to take a look at the guise that is used to close down Occupy, both in the park here at Cesar Chavez Plaza and now at the City Hall. There are these ordinances called park closure ordinances or anti-camping ordinances. And actually now we have a new ordinance that's specially tailored for City Hall to prevent activity from occurring there. These ordinances, in my judgment, if held to a standard that a jury would impose, would be struck down. Can we get these ordinances in front of a jury? Okay. The answer is we could. We could get them in front of a jury if, after people who are arrested in a park for being there after hours or for erecting a tent or for serving food, took the citation that they got and said, I want a trial. When that happened in Cesar Chavez Park, 3 nights in a row where over 100 people were arrested and had the opportunity to plead not guilty and say, I want a trial, what happened? Right on the eve of trial, the prosecution folded. By folding, everybody got away, let's say, without having to pay any penalties. But we were all deprived of an opportunity to put the case before a jury and say, is it legal to force people who are trying to come together to educate our community about the issues that we have in common, where we feel that we are getting screwed? Is it fair that they should be closed down? Juries would say no, but we were deprived of the opportunity to present that case to a jury. Likewise, when we went to federal court, we were deprived of an opportunity because the judge decided that, oh, these ordinances pass the time, place, and manner test, which is a test that doesn't appear in the Constitution, but it's a test that restricts freedom of speech and freedom of assembly that our politicians engrafted on to the Constitution. So now we are faced with what is a reasonable time, place, and manner. And that judge, federal judge, decided that the city here had the right to limit the use of parks so that they would be closed down from 11 o'clock or midnight until 5 or 6 in the morning. But for what purpose? Who else is using the parks during those hours? The answer is nobody. What is the other alternative use that has to be accommodated? There are none. But nonetheless, that jury trial was again deprived, that we were again deprived of a jury trial in federal court. Now, one other thing has happened, and that is the Occupy movement in Davis, UC Davis. And actually that's what I'm supposed to talk about, but this is just a warm-up. Occupy movement came to the city of Davis in the Davis Central Park because they, in Davis, were protesting the same kinds of things that we are protesting here. That is mortgage foreclosure, high cost of health care, unemployment, education costs going out of the roof. And that occupation in Central Park was being closed down at the same time that students who were faced with an 81% increase in tuition over the next 5 years decided that and the privatization of their university required an Occupy Davis campus movement. So Occupy was born on the campus of Davis, and as soon as it came into being, which was on the 17th of November, the university administration, in connection with and in consultation with campuses throughout the state and cities and police forces and mayors of, for instance, Oakland, who had just closed down that Occupy, decided that they could not allow tents to go up on campus because it would be too big a draw to other people who were disaffected. It would be too big a challenge to the university administration. They wouldn't be able to control the uprising that challenged and protested the huge increase in tuition and the fact that U.S. Bank was now issuing the student cards on campus and opening accounts for all the students, so you get your tuition money deposited in your account and they get their interest off of it. They get their use fees. Well, the students were protesting that and the privatization of the university. That was too much of a threat. So what did they do? First thing, brought out the forces. They had 35 riot-geared officers moving against peaceful, non-violent, seated students surrounding some symbolic tents who were then pepper sprayed and arrested. Now again, those students wanted an opportunity to get to court to try this case. Let a jury say, was that a legal shutdown of an unlawful assembly, or was it in fact a violation of constitutional rights? But the university did what has been done time and time again, refused to allow these students who had been arrested, pepper sprayed, to get to trial, and instead offered them money to settle the case. So I'm hoping that someday we're going to be able to put these issues squarely to a jury, because I'm confident that the people of this country recognize what those guarantees in our Constitution mean for us. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have those rights. And in fact, unless we continue to gather and protest, there will be a time when we will not be able to. So I commend to you the importance of standing up for your rights. And we who work in the court system only back you up. We are not the leaders. We are just we're trying to cover your back at some point. But it's people massing in the streets demanding the rights that is going to be the only way that those rights are maintained for the generations to come. Thank you, and again, happy birthday.